People who sleep unclothed. When has it ever backfired? Story 1. I'm a night shift nurse, so my schedule is already kind of chaotic. One day I got off work and had plans to grab lunch with my in-laws. I was running on fumes, so I figured I'd sneak in a quick nap before they arrived. I told my husband very clearly to wake me up when his parents were on the way, especially since they live about an hour and a half away. To make sure I didn't fall into a deep, can't wake up kind of sleep, I chose the living room couch instead of my bed. You know, something light and casual. Also, I sleep bare, just how I wind down after a long shift. Didn't think it'd be an issue for a controlled nap situation. Well, guess who forgot to wake me up? Yep, my husband. I woke up to the sound of the front door opening, and then there's my father-in-law casually walking into the living room while I'm completely bare on the couch, dead asleep. I've never bolted upright and grabbed a throw blanket so fast in my life. Still not sure who was more traumatized, me or him. Probably a tie. Before we continue, do us a quick favor, smash that like button and subscribe to support our channel. Story 2. A few years back, when I was in my early 20s, my mom and I made the mistake of letting a woman named Cammie stay with us as a roommate. Big mistake. She was dating a guy named Andrew and I loathed him. He was creepy. He'd hit on anything with a pulse and a pair of jugs, often right in front of Cammie. Her former roommate had been a younger, disabled woman whose overprotective parents rushed in to remove her from the situation after they found out Andrew had been trying to sleep with her. Honestly, I don't blame them. To make matters worse, he smelled, I don't know if it was a medical issue or what, but the stench was so strong and persistent that if Cammie washed his clothes in our machine, we'd have to run an empty load afterward, or else whatever we washed next would come out reeking of him. When we brought it up to her, she giggled and said it was his man Musk. There were a lot of issues with those two, but the situation that pushed things over the edge started when they decided to bang with the bedroom door open. Since our bedrooms were at opposite ends of a short hallway, I heard everything. Every groan, every slap of sweaty skin, every awkward sound. It was horrifying. I couldn't even close my door to block it out because our cat liked to sleep on the end of my bed, and I didn't want to lock her out. The next day, I tried to gently bring it up with Cammie. Maybe they hadn't realized the door was open. Instead, she told me they'd left it open on purpose, as an invitation to me. I was horrified. I told her absolutely not. No thank you. I explained that I identified as asexual and had never even gone beyond kissing or holding hands with anyone at that point. I know, scandalous, and I wanted nothing to do with it. The very next night, Andrew stayed over again. In the middle of the night, he snuck out of her room and came into mine. I was bare under the covers, and he refused to leave until I accepted his apology for what he called a joke. I should have screamed. My mom's room was right next to mine, but I was so terrified that all I could do was quietly beg him to leave. He even tried to get a hug from me. Thankfully, he eventually left without touching me, but I felt completely trapped. I didn't want to give that creep the satisfaction of seeing me, so I stayed under the covers, and throwing stuffed animals at him did absolutely nothing. I had never felt so violated. I didn't go to the police. There was no proof, but thankfully, my mom believed me. She immediately banned him from the house. Not long after, Cammie vanished from our lives too, to our great relief. Years later, I became friends with a woman. Let's call her friend. One day we were trading horror stories about awful former roommates, and it turned out that Cammie and Andrew had entered her life shortly after they exited ours. Sadly, Andrew essayed her, and when she confronted Cammie about it, Cammie lashed out, called her names, and both of them disappeared again. I don't know if friend ever pressed charges, but I don't think he saw any jail time. Sometimes I wonder how much worse things could have gotten if my mom hadn't been sleeping in the next room. I'm grateful she was. Oh, and bonus fun fact? Andrew had a wife who lived in the neighborhood. Cammie was just his side chick. Story 3. We had a break-in, and the burglars were still downstairs at the door. I didn't fully realize what was happening until I saw the flashlights. Acting on instinct, I grabbed a bison skull I have hanging on the wall, held it in front of my face, and ran screaming down the stairs. I must have scared the life out of them. Just picture a bare woman with a bison skull for a head, screeching like a banshee. They bolted, dropped everything, and ran. I called the police, and they were caught somewhere nearby, Turns out they were just 17s or 18-year-old kids. My friend was furious with me afterward, saying it could have gone very differently if the intruders had been armed. They did have a hammer and a crowbar, but they dropped them by the door as they fled. Looking back, I know it wasn't the smartest idea. It was pure reflex. I didn't think it through. It absolutely could have ended badly. But honestly, it's still one of my proudest moments. It worked out great. Story 4. A real one. Not just a little tremor. The kind where stuff starts rattling and your parents are yelling, "Get out of the house," from the other room. But here's the thing. I sleep unclothed, and when it hit, I had nothing within reach. No robe, no pants, not even a decently sized towel. So while the walls are shaking and my family is making a break for the front yard, I just stood there like, yeah, this is how I go. Because in that moment, I made a very clear choice. I would rather be crushed under a pile of drywall and broken furniture than run outside, completely unclothed in front of every single neighbor on the block. Spoiler, I survived. But to this day, I stand by my decision. Some things are worse than earthquakes. Story 5. Not me personally, but an old boss of mine told me this story. Her husband sleeps in the Nude, and one night they were woken up by the sound of someone trying to break into their car in the driveway. Without a moment's hesitation, this 6-foot-something guy sprints downstairs, throws open the front door, and jumps into the car with the would-be thief, then proceeds to beat the crap out of him. The thief eventually managed to scramble out of the car, but her husband wasn't done. He chased the guy down the street, completely barefoot and totally bare-arsed. Apparently, the local Facebook group had an absolute field day with it. Story 6. Our apartment building caught fire in the middle of the night. I barely had time to grab my spouse's robe, which of course was missing the tie, and run outside with an infant and a toddler in my arms. We're standing out there, smoke in the air, and then the news crew shows up. Meanwhile, my terrified kids are trying to climb inside my robe for comfort. And let's just say I unintentionally gave the neighborhood and probably the evening news more of a show than I ever wanted to. Not my proudest moment, but hey, we all got out safe. Story 7. So this happened back in university during spring break. Most people had gone home, but I decided to stay behind for a quiet week to myself. It was warm, the dorms were practically empty, so I figured, why not sleep in the Nude? Total peace and quiet, right? Wrong. Middle of the night, I'm half asleep when I hear my door creak open. At first I think maybe it's just my imagination, until I sit up and make eye contact with a total stranger. A burglar. We just stare at each other for a second, both completely frozen. Then, no joke, he goes, "Oh, sorry," like he walked into the wrong meeting or something. He then casually grabs a bag of cookies from my desk, snatches my roommate's Nikes and walks right out. And I'm just sitting there, completely bare, wondering if that actually just happened. Did I chase after him? Absolutely not. I was in no condition to be heroic. Story 8. Back in my middle school church youth group days, there was this tradition no one bothered to tell me about. Apparently, when a new kid joined, the group would do a prank kidnap early one morning, basically show up at your house unannounced, pile you into the church van with the rest of the crew, and take everyone out for a big homemade breakfast. You know, wholesome chaos. Well, one morning I wake up to the sound of voices. I open my eyes, and there are 8 of my classmates, my youth pastor and my mom, all standing in a circle around my bed, as someone yanks off the covers. Middle school me, completely stunned, because yeah, I was sleeping bare. Nobody warned me. No one thought to mention, hey, maybe wear something to bed tonight, just vibes and a surprise intervention. And you know what? I still sleep unclothed to this day, but now I always lock the door. Story 9. So I'm dead asleep when I suddenly hear the front door close, whispering, and then footsteps coming up the stairs. Naturally, I wake up in full adrenaline mode. My first half-awake thought, screw it. Nothing's more terrifying than a big, bare dude charging at you ready to throw hands. So I get out of bed, completely unclothed, position myself behind the door like I'm in some kind of tactical horror movie scene, and wait. As soon as the footsteps hit the top of the stairs, I swing the bedroom door open, roar, and sprint out, fist raised, ready to scare the soul out of this intruder. And I run straight at my sister-in-law. She screams, "What the hell are you doing?" I yell back, "What the hell are you doing?" She shouts, I am dropping your daughter off. She had a nightmare. Also, could you please cover your junk? That's when it hit me. I'd completely forgotten. My daughter had a sleepover at her aunt's place that night, and that this exact scenario was a possibility. We all ended up laughing about it. Eventually, my wife was in tears from laughing so hard, and I just slunk back into the bedroom like a cartoon villain who got caught too early in the plan. She took over. I threw on some clothes, and now it's a family story no one will ever let me live down. Story 10. I was on tour with a show, staying in yet another hotel. This time I was in Scotland, one of those stretches where every room starts to blur together, middle of the night, half asleep, nature calls. So I get up, shuffle my way to the bathroom like a zombie, muscle memory doing all the work. Except, it wasn't set the bathroom. I only realized I'd stepped into the hallway when I heard that unmistakable click of the hotel door locking behind me. That slow, creeping horror of "oh no" hit me all at once as I stood there completely locked out in nothing but my birthday suit. Turns out I'd followed the layout from the previous hotel out of habit. Luckily, I found a small towel outside a room to cover my bits. Thankfully, it was the middle of the night and the place was quiet. Only person I had to face was the front desk clerk, who to his credit handed me a spare key with a straight face, though I definitely caught a smirk. The guy in a very strong Scottish accent goes, "Oh, don't worry, I've seen a lot more with a lot less." Story 11. Okay, so when it snows, I like to sleep with the blinds and curtains open. Usually no one's out while it's snowing overnight, and if there's a solid coat of snow on the ground, the city just glows. Light reflects off everything. It's beautiful. I used to live in a brick shotgun house with a side patio that connected the bedroom and living room. Next to the bedroom was the kitchen and a hallway. The bedroom itself stuck out a bit to the side, and it had a window on the back wall that looked out over the backyard and parking area. Now, because of how the house was built, if you stood at that window and looked outside, your waist, or more specifically, your pubic region, would be at perfect eye level to someone standing at the back door. But who's going to be at the back door in the middle of the night during a snowstorm in single-digit temps, right? I'll tell you who. A very confused and very surprised middle-aged dude who apparently had the wrong house and was there to pick someone up. I woke up in the middle of the night, noticed how bright it was, got excited about all the snow, and walked over to the window, totally bare. I wasn't even looking down, just admiring the scene straight ahead. Then suddenly, I notice a guy standing about 3 or 4 feet from the window, right at, let's call it, prime viewing height, staring up at me with the most bewildered look on his face, phone in hand. I just about jumped out of my damn skin and yanked the blinds shut in world record time. No idea where he thought he was, but I'm absolutely certain he'll never forget those 10-20 seconds. Story 12. Back in my college days, I used to sleepwalk a lot, especially after a few drinks. One night, after a particularly solid night out, I managed to sleepwalk my way right into my roommate's room. Important detail, he's also my brother. So I stroll in, flip the lights on like I own the place, and then still fully asleep, I proceed to relieve myself, right there, on his floor, and in his shoe. Next morning, I wake up to the news that I turned his Nikes into a urinal. Naturally, I apologized, bought him a new pair, the works. That sips when he hits me with the real kicker. He says, honestly, the only reason I didn't stop you was because I was sleeping unclothed too, and there was no way I was getting up and wrestling you like that. So yeah, the whole situation backfired on both of us that night. Lesson learned, maybe hydration and sleep pants are the real heroes. Story 13. So we had just gotten this adorable new kitten. You know, the cute little fluff ball that just gets into everything. Well, one night, my husband and I were having some private time, and out of nowhere, our kitten comes up and smacks him right in the balls. It was like something out of a comedy sketch, completely unexpected, hilarious, and totally ruined the mood. We still laugh about it to this day. Fast forward a bit, and we took the kitten to get neutered, and when we got home, my husband just looks at him and says, "Well, buddy, that sips why we had to take your balls." I guess the kitten's revenge was a little too successful, huh? Story 14. I had just moved into a new place. First night there. Naturally, I got a little drunk, stumbled into bed, and passed out. In the middle of the night, I woke up in total darkness. No clue where I was, couldn't find the door, no familiar layout to help me navigate, just walls and confusion. And for some reason, my drunk, half-asleep brain decided, oh, we must be outside. So what do? I pull my pants down, squat, and start peeing, right there. A few seconds in, I hear this horrified voice in the darkness. What the hell is that sound? It's my boyfriend, fully awake, and it hits me. I'm not outside. I am 100% indoors, peeing on the floor like some kind of confused raccoon. Needless to say, cleanup was rough, dignity gone. But hey, at least I'm now very familiar with where all the doors are in that house. Story 15. So, one night, I wake up in the middle of the night to the sound of our infant crying. I drag myself out of bed, half asleep, trying to remember what I'm supposed to do, and as I pass the stairwell, I look up and there's my mother-in-law just sitting there watching me walk by. No explanation, no context. At that moment, I'm way too tired to even care. I just keep moving, baby in hand. Later, when my mother-in-law came over to help out with the baby, we had that conversation. We were all running on fumes, and I said, look, we set all exhausted. We know we set going to see sides of each other we set never seen before. Let's sets just roll with it. I guess that night she got a front row seat to the sleep-deprived chaos that is parenthood. Honestly, after that, nothing felt off limits anymore. Story 16. I've got a dachshund, and let me tell you, they're serious burrowers. She's got a one-track mind when it comes to warmth, and she's always finding her way into our bed, right under the covers, and always on my side, because of course, that's where the heat is. Now, here's the thing, sometimes she kicks in her sleep, and when she does, it always seems to land in the most unfortunate spots. I'm talking about areas that really don't appreciate unexpected dachshund kicks at 3 a.m. So after a few too many midnight injuries, we've had to set some ground rules. She's now officially only allowed between the top sheet and the blanket. No more direct access to my side, or else I might lose a bit more than sleep. Story 17. So I used to sleep unclothed every night, felt like freedom, you know? One summer night, I forgot I left my window slightly open. I'm dead asleep, dreaming about winning a fight with a raccoon, don't ask. When I wake up to a loud crash, my half-asleep brain immediately thinks, home invasion. So I grab the nearest weapon-like object, which was unfortunately a decorative ceramic pineapple, and go full stealth mode. I'm talking ninja rolls, ducking behind couches, peeking around corners, completely bare and armed with fruit-themed home decor. I get to the living room and see the source of the crash. A squirrel, a real live squirrel, who is now panicking because he's trapped inside with an unclothed lunatic wielding ceramic produce. We lock eyes. It darts left. I go right. I swear I saw judgment in its tiny eyes. Long story short, I end up slipping, smashing the pineapple, and crashing through my own screen door, just as my neighbor across the street is watering her garden. We make direct eye contact. She waves. I waved back, still unclothed. Anyway, I sleep in basketball shorts now. Story 18. So, my family used to live in this ranch-style house before my parents got divorced. One night, there's a big argument between mom and dad. So my dad decides to sleep in the guest room on the complete opposite side of the house. The guest room even had its own door that led out onto the driveway. Now, here's the kicker. My dad sleeps unclothed. No shame. So in the middle of the night, someone manages to force the garage door open and grab one of our bikes. They get about 10 feet down the driveway before out of nowhere, my dad bursts out of the guest room. It's 3 a.m. It is completely bare, storming down the driveway with his junk swinging like a man on a mission. He chased the guy down the street fast enough to keep up. The thief, seeing an unclothed man charging at him in full rage mode, immediately jumps off the bike and just runs away. Look, no one's gonna fight an unclothed man. If a guy's willing to chase you down and fight you bare, he's probably a little unhinged. You just let him have the bike. Story 19. When I was a teenager, it was the middle of the night and I was sleeping peacefully, deep asleep. My older sister got home late with her friend who happened to have a massive crush on me. My sister had a single bed in her room, and I slept on a full, so naturally they decided to barge into my room at 2 a.m., flip on the lights, shout that they were commandeering my bed for the night, and yank the covers right off of me. Let's just say her friend's flirtation levels went way up after that night. Fast forward several years, I was in my 20s, and I just worked a full shift before setting out on a 12-hour road trip. I was dead set on making it the whole way without stopping, classic 20-something guy mindset. No breaks except for gas. I made it about 6 hours. Around 4 a.m., completely exhausted, I pulled into a motel. I couldn't get to the bed fast enough. I didn't even shower, just brushed my teeth on the walk to the room, stumbled inside, spat out the toothpaste, splashed some water on my face, tore off all my clothes, pulled back the sheets, and collapsed onto the mattress. I was out cold within 2 minutes. A few hours later, I was jolted awake by a housekeeper shouting, "Aye, no, no, no," as she bolted out of the room. I hadn't heard her knock or come in. But here's the kicker. After I realized what had just happened, and she was long gone, it occurred to me that I must have been having a very pleasant dream just before she walked in, and well, my body had reacted accordingly. I left a few extra dollars as a tip. Hazard pay. Story 20. One morning, I wake up, still half asleep, and when I open my eyes, I see 4 police officers standing in my bedroom, along with my landlord. Not just 1 or 2, but 4 cops. I'm talking full-on uniforms, the whole deal. Naturally, I'm completely stunned, like, what is happening right now? And I'm not the type to panic, but I'm seriously questioning every life choice I've ever made at that moment. So here's what happened. Turns out my roommate, who had been acting a little strange for the past few days, was missing. The police were looking for him because he'd been involved in some kind of mess that got him on their radar. Apparently, he was supposed to meet with them to clear things up. But then, poof, he vanished. For whatever reason, my landlord decided the best course of action was to just let the police waltz into my bedroom without any warning, and without even asking me if it was okay. No knocking, no asking if I knew where my roommate was, just 4 cops in my personal space, bright and early, with no explanation except, "We're looking for your roommate." Well, long story short, my roommate was eventually found, but it wasn't in the way any of us had hoped. And my landlord? He was promptly fired. Turns out letting the police just barge in without any notice or permission isn't the best way to handle things. I'm just glad I was still in my pajamas and not caught up in any of my own drama, but I don't think I'll ever forget waking up to 4 police officers staring at me that morning. Story 21. Earlier this year, I had the absolute worst flu combined with a UTI at the same time. Yeah, a double whammy of misery. I was so weak and delusional that at one point I genuinely thought I was about to die and needed to call an ambulance. But here's the thing. I was sleeping bare. I wasn't about to have EMTs burst in, break down my door, and find me in my full bedroom state. So in my feverish haze, I thought, okay, I'll get dressed first, unlock the door, and make it easier for them. Seems like the smart thing to do, right? Except I was in no condition to move. It took me a full 12 hours to crawl. Yes, crawl from my bedroom to the living room. It felt like I was in some kind of slow-motion survival movie. I made it to my computer chair, collapsed and passed out at my desk, all without ever calling the ambulance I had intended to. The next day, I somehow mustered enough energy to throw on some clothes and drive myself to the doctor's office. At that point, I was so far gone that they immediately called an ambulance to take me to the hospital. They got me in an isolation ward for a week, which was, fun. Story 22. So this happened a long time ago, back in high school. It was one of those ridiculously hot summer nights, and my house didn't have AC. I was sweating buckets. So I thought, you know what? Tonight sits the night. I said I'm gonna sleep bare. Now, this was literally the first time I'd ever done this, so I wasn't exactly prepared for what was about to unfold. I wake up the next morning groggy and disoriented, only to find that my parents had somehow decided not to wake me up at all and just sent the guests straight up to my room. Yeah, no knocking, no asking if I was decent. They just sent them right on in. So there I am, fully unclothed, and I hear the door creak open. I look up, and standing there right in the doorway is my crush, just casually standing there staring at me. Before I can even process what's going on, her boyfriend walks in too, and then they both just stand there. In my room, to hang out while I'm lying there, exposed, trying to figure out if I'm dreaming or if this is really happening. Honestly, it was like a nightmare mixed with a prank show. The only thing I could say was, well, this is awkward. They looked at each other, then awkwardly backed out of the room, and I just lay there in my unclothed shame, wondering how I was going to live this down. Story 23. Have kids? They'll catch you slipping at some point? Yeah, I thought I had that one figured out. My first wife and I had boys. They were loud, rambunctious little guys, but at least they were polite enough to knock on closed doors before barging in. I had that level of chaos under control. Then, about 4 years after my wife passed, I remarried and suddenly got introduced to little girls. Specifically, I got a 4-year-old stepdaughter. Her mom had kicked her dad out right when the pandemic started, and it was just the two of them. Now this kid, clothing was optional. We're talking full-on pants are for the weak kind of vibes indoors. It was a whole new world for me. So, one night I wake up in that weird, panic-stricken something's wrong way at 4 a.m. You know that feeling, like you're about to be hit with something chaotic? And sure enough, there she is, my 4-year-old stepdaughter, just standing at the end of the bed, silent as a ghost. No warning, no hey, I need something, just pure creepy little kid silence. Meanwhile, I'm under the covers desperately trying to wrestle on some shorts like it's a fight I didn't sign up for. And then just to make it weirder, I hear the opening notes of O Fortuna playing from nowhere. Like, is this kid trying to summon a monster from the depths of hell? She then hits me with the classic, there's Sep's a monster in my closet, and you need to kick its behind because you stare army man. Now I'm half awake, half dressed, and half prepared to battle mythical beasts in the middle of the night. But honestly, I was just trying to figure out how to get my shorts on without embarrassing myself. So lesson learned, kids will absolutely throw you into some ridiculous situations, and nothing will ever be as unsettling as the sound of O Fortuna blasting at 4 a.m. when you're still half asleep and trying to not get caught pantsless. Story 24. So I live in a condo, and every year we get fire inspectors who come by to check the smoke detectors in each of our units. They give us a heads up a week in advance, but somehow, and I'm not sure how this happened, I completely forgot they were coming in early the next day. So I wake up one morning completely disoriented and realize I've somehow kicked my sheets off in my sleep. I'm lying there unclothed, trying to figure out what's going on when I suddenly hear footsteps in the hallway. I look up, and there's a guy standing in my hallway with a clear line of sight right into my bedroom. He's just casually checking the fire detector, like it's the most normal thing in the world. And I sit lying there completely unclothed, thinking, okay, this is happening. But you know what? The real kicker here is, do I still sleep bare? Oh, you bet you I do. Story 25. This didn't happen to me, but to my husband. A few years ago during the pandemic, I went out for a midnight walk while he was finishing up a shower and getting ready for bed. When I got home, I walked in to find a thief in our kitchen, arms full of our electronics and breath reeking of our nicest bottle of rum. I managed to grab our stuff back from him, and he bolted for the door. I caught him by his backpack trying to wrestle my husband's work bag off of him. It was a messenger-style bag, but the thief had put it on first and then slung his own backpack over it, so I couldn't just pull it off. As the two of us yelled and struggled by the door, I suddenly heard footsteps pounding down the stairs. I felt a wave of relief. My husband was coming to help. Then I saw the thief freeze, eyes wide, staring past me. He actually gasped. I couldn't help it. I turned around too, and there was my husband, tall, built like a powerlifter, absolutely bare, charging down the stairs with zero hesitation. So unclothed he didn't even have his glasses on. I was so stunned, I lost my grip, and the thief slipped away and ran out the door. My first thought was, well, there goes my husband's laptop. Time to call the cops. What I didn't expect was for my husband to tear right past me and chase the guy down the street, still completely unclothed, roaring so loudly that neighbors started coming out of their houses. I stood there on the doorstep, phone in hand, giving the police the details. As I was finishing up the report, my husband came jogging back, empty-handed and clearly embarrassed. Apparently, he caught up to the guy near the end of our street, but just as he was about to tackle him, he had a sudden realization, what if the cops show up, and find me sitting on this guy, completely unclothed. And since the bag was empty, he'd taken his laptop and wallet out before bed. He let the thief go. He was dressed by the time the police arrived. Not that it mattered. The entire neighborhood's Ring doorbells and security cameras had already captured glorious HD footage of him, in all his natural glory, sprinting down the street like a mythic creature of vengeance. The thief was never caught, but we definitely got one hell of a story out of it. Story 26. One time I forgot to lock my front door. I was living in an apartment complex right across from a bar, and my AC was busted, so I was sleeping completely unclothed, no sheets, nothing. Suddenly, I'm jolted awake by someone screaming. I open my eyes to find a random woman standing in my bedroom with the lights on. Turns out she lived in the unit above me, was a little too tipsy, and got off on the wrong floor. She just wandered in thinking it was her place. After a few panicked seconds, she realized her mistake, apologized, and left. I just sat there trying to process what had just happened, then eventually went back to sleep. She apologized again later, and weirdly enough, we ended up being pretty chill neighbors after that. Story 27. I'm in Bali with my wife, staying in one of those beautiful overwater rooms, the kind where you're living the dream surrounded by water and everything's perfect until some drunk guys start causing trouble outside our door. I hear them getting closer, laughing and shouting, and I think, okay, not my problem. But then the next thing I know, the door starts opening and three guys just waltz in, talking like they own the place. Now I still half asleep, but I hear the door creaking, so I stand up, completely unclothed, because of course, I sleep bare. I stumble toward the door, slam it half shut, and scream, "What the heck, you dumbasses?" The three Aussies are standing there, all confused. One of them says, "You stirring our roommate." So I sit standing there completely unclothed, with one hand awkwardly covering my junk, and I yell, "Get out. I sip in here with my wife. Get the hell off my porch." I slam the door so hard, I'm pretty sure the entire hotel heard it. I hear them mumble something to each other, and then stumble off, and never saw them again. My wife? She was shocked at how fast I moved. Apparently, I'm a lot more agile when there's a bunch of drunk Aussies messing with my privacy. Story 28. Alright, so this one's a doozy. I have a habit of sleeping unclothed. I'm lying in bed minding my own business when I feel something crawling across me. I thought it was just my imagination, until I felt it get between my legs. Turns out a cockroach had decided to make itself at home, and I shit you not, it bit my right testicle. Now the itch and swelling that followed, let's just say it wasn't a fun few days. But here's the kicker, I didn't even realize what was going on until I smelled the cockroach. Yeah, it wasn't the bite that woke me up, it was the stink of that little monster. So I spring out of bed, and there it is, this cockroach, strolling victoriously across my mattress like it's the king of the world. I'm just standing there, half panicked, half in pain, watching this thing like it owns the place. Eventually, it climbs down, and I lose it. I grab a shoe and crush that thing with all the fury I could muster. You better believe that roach didn't stand a chance. Story 29. One night, I had to let the dog out in the middle of the night. I'm stumbling around, barely awake, when I feel something cold and slimy sprawl across my leg. Naturally, I freak out, thinking it's some sort of bug or I don't even know what, but I look down and no joke, there's a frog just chilling on my leg. The real panic hit when the little guy decided it was a good idea to leap from the top of my head. Yes, I said, the top of my head straight down to my leg. It was way too close for comfort, considering it was within frog tongue range of you-know-what. I was mentally preparing myself for the worst. Thankfully, the frog decided to keep its tongue to itself and just hopped off to the floor. It then hid behind the TV like it was auditioning for a role in a spy movie. Long story short, I caught it and kicked it out of the house. But yeah, that was a weird, uncomfortable situation that definitely made me question my decision to sleep unclothed. Story 30. This one time I wasn't exactly the one who got scared, but I definitely scared the living daylights out of a potential robber. A few years ago, I was living with my brother and his wife. They decided to move out at the end of the year, so I took over the house. That year, for my 21st birthday, my dad gave me this amazing engraved Robin Hood replica long sword, which at the time felt like the coolest gift ever. So my brother and his wife move out, and I'm alone in the house for the first time. The second night I'm there, I hear some strange noises coming from the front door. Plus, I hear two voices whispering. Naturally, I freak out. I'm half asleep, so I just grab my sword, thinking I'm about to face some intruders like a medieval knight. I rush toward the door, and the second I open it, I'm blinded by a flashlight pointed straight at me. The two guys on the other side, they absolutely lose it. They freak out. Take one look at me, holding a long sword in my underwear. Yeah, I was sleeping in my birthday suit again, surprise, and just bolt down the lawn and over the fence like their lives depended on it. Needless to say, I never had any issues after that. The only thing I scared that night was them, and I guess the sword did its job in a very unexpected way. Story 31. This didn't exactly happen to me, but it happened to a guy I used to know, and trust me, it's a story that still gets talked about. He was the kind of guy who would sleep unclothed during the summer. Honestly, who can blame him, right? But we live in a country that's super earthquake prone, so the odds of a massive quake were always hanging over us. Anyway, one summer, we had the biggest earthquake in decades. I'm talking over an 8 on the Richter scale, smack in the middle of the hottest month. Of course, it hits in the middle of the night. So my buddy wakes up, totally disoriented, and the apartment's shaking like crazy. The next thing you know, he's sprinting out of his place, completely bare with his parents, who fortunately were dressed, but still in a panic. Imagine the poor guy running outside in full panic mode, just hoping he doesn't run into any neighbors who happen to be awake. But wait, the chaos didn't stop there. Aftershocks hit for days after the earthquake. And of course, one of them had to catch him while he was in the shower. So there he is, in the middle of a quake, soaking wet and once again, completely bare, running out of the shower like he's in some kind of action movie. Story 32. I was on a boat in the Bering Sea, and let me tell you, it was rough. We're talking major waves, the kind of storm that makes you wonder if you're actually going to make it out. So it's the middle of the night, and we're all sleeping on the starboard side of the boat, me and about 6 other guys. Suddenly, out of nowhere, this massive wave hits, and boom, we're all thrown out of our beds and slammed onto the floor. It felt like something out of a video game, like when you almost die in Call of Duty and there's that ringing noise. Everything's in slow motion. Just imagine that. But in real life, there I am, in my birthday suit in the middle of the chaos, surrounded by 6 other dudes, all of us scrambling around trying to figure out what just happened. I'm still half asleep, totally disoriented, and just crawling around like I'm in some kind of disaster movie. Story 33. It all started when my cat, being the troublemaker she is, somehow pushed open the internal garage door. It wasn't latched properly, and she was on a mission to explore the garage. It's 3 a.m., and I hear her, so I immediately leap out of bed to stop her from getting in there. But of course, in my panic, the door slammed shut behind me and locked me out of the house. So now I'm standing outside, in nothing but my birthday suit, at 3 a.m., trying to figure out how to get back inside without waking up the neighbors. What did I do? I had to climb through the front bedroom window, yeah, fully unclothed, with the cat tucked under my arm like a furry football. The only way to reach the windowsill was by stacking up a bunch of milk crates, which, let me tell you, wasn't nearly as graceful as it sounds. I had to kind of launch myself sideways through the window since, my legs aren't exactly long enough to just hop through. And the kicker? My partner was watching the whole thing unfold on our security cameras from work. So while I'm half bare and struggling to climb through the window like a failed circus act, they're just sitting there watching it all live. Definitely not my finest moment. Story 34. I live alone, so I sleep in pajamas or bare, depending on my mood. One very, very cold night, I woke up feeling a bit parched, so I hopped out of bed and quickly made my way to the fridge for some filtered water. As I walked through the living room, I noticed a belt lying on the floor between the living room and the dining room. I don't leave my belt lying around like that, I thought. Oh well, no big deal. But when I stepped on the belt, it coiled up and struck at me. A feisty belt indeed. Now here I am, completely bare, facing off with an angry snake, and both of my dogs are going crazy over the snake in the kitchen. I didn't have my glasses on, the lights were off, and I couldn't identify the snake to know if it was venomous. So I'm trying to wrangle 2 German shepherds, who are doing their best to protect me, but it's not going well. I finally got the dogs into the bedroom and shut the door, then grabbed some boots and something to trap the snake in. I managed to catch it, took it outside, and tossed it. I had zero sympathy for the snake. Considering it was 5 degrees Fahrenheit outside, and it tried to strike at me, I was done with it. Of course, the snake went straight back under the house. I didn't see it again until spring, when I found it chilling on my porch. It was a black snake, so I left it alone this time. Story 35. I'm not sure if this counts as a backfire, but here's sips what happened. On June 21st, 2014, I laid down for a nap. I woke up to my dog barking aggressively and my barely teenage daughter shouting something like, "What are you doing in our house? Get out." I knew something was wrong immediately. I jumped up, grabbed a bedsheet to cover myself, and headed toward the commotion. When I opened the bedroom door, I saw a man walking down the hallway with his hands on my terrified 7-year-old shoulders. I instinctively rushed him using the sheet like a shield, slamming him against the wall and trying to push him back. He didn't fight back much. He just kept repeating things like, "Hold up, I just want to ask you something," but I didn't care what he wanted. My only priority was getting him away from my children and out of my house. I forced him down the hallway through the kitchen and toward the back door. My son opened it, and I shoved the man outside. But before I could lock it, he forced it back open and started pushing his way in again. That's Seps when my son handed me a Chef Seps knife. I swung it to keep him back. He finally turned and ran. My daughter was on the phone with 911, and my son handed me a nearby dress. I threw it on and chased after him. Probably not the smartest move, but adrenaline took over. He had run through our backyard and was now grabbing our neighbor, trying to push her into her home. I sprinted toward them with the knife, and he let her go, bolted toward the neighborhood fence, and started to climb it, only to jump back down when he saw the pit bulls on the other side. Then he ran off. My daughter handed me the phone so I could describe him to the dispatcher. Not long after, police arrived. They had already apprehended the man and brought him back to our neighborhood for identification. And that Sips where things took a turn. Instead of focusing on the intruder, the police started accusing me. They told me they were going to arrest me for domestic violence. They asked if I knew him. I said no. He was a complete stranger. One of the officers said, "He's black. Your husband's black. You sure you don't know him?" I replied, "Not all black people know each other," clearly frustrated. The officer then said, "Maybe you just don't want your husband to know that you know him." It was shocking, disgusting. We had dealt with racism before in that town. They had literally told us before, "We don't do interracial marriages around here," but this was next level. They refused to press charges against the man, claimed he was just high and had the wrong house. They told me home invasion isn't a real crime in Texas, and that because my door wasn't locked, and because he pushed his way back in before I could relock it, it didn't count as breaking in. At one point, things escalated so badly they had to call in the sergeant and eventually bring in an officer from a neighboring city because I wasn't willing to deal with the officers who were clearly biased. No charges were filed against the intruder. No justice was served. But one thing's for sure, getting chased out of a house by an angry bedsheet-wielding mom was definitely not part of his plan that day. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.